is approximately going to eat up about $180,000 of our capital budget. And I'm looking at Oil and Stone, two other roads. We're looking at Lower Rogers and Sparks Road, chip sealing them, probably at the cost or neighborhood of around $40,000. So the total of the two or the three big projects I got for this year is around $220,000. With that being said, if that's all we did this year, that would leave us roughly $60,000 to $65,000 in the capital money. So I guess I'm just looking to see what everybody's thoughts are on how far we want to go this year. Do we want to move it all? Just looking for input on that. So I'll leave it up to you guys on that
one. I'm going to jump in quick and just give everybody a rough overview of where we're at with the finances this year, because it is quite a complicated situation that we find ourselves in. The short answer is we have no idea where we stand financially speaking, because there's so many things that are outside of our control. So I'm going to try to touch on them quickly. First and foremost, about 30 minutes ago, the county legislature voted to remove the authority of the county treasurer to disperse sales tax sharing with us. Their stated reason for doing so was to hit pause on the program, not to stop the program. Although right now there's no legal authority for the treasurer to share the money with us for the remainder of the year. The county chairwoman Stein stated that she thinks that we're all in this together, and that she is definitely not looking to remove support for the towns and villages, but they need to hit pause on the program until they know where they stand. I can tell you that right now, NISAC, the Association of Counties, projected that the month of April had a 26% reduction in sales tax revenue on average. They're projecting for the remainder of the year anywhere between a 10 and 20% reduction on sales tax. If the county passed on that reduction in sales tax to us, we would be looking at a $70,000 to $130,000 reduction on our sales tax revenue. But we have no idea that if they're going to pass that reduction on to us, if they're going to share a lesser amount with us. The big consideration at the county level is that the state, through the governor's office, reserves the right to, at 3 different times this year, reduce local aid to the county. The county receives $18 to $19 million in state aid, I believe. And it's possible that that aid could be reduced at those 3 times throughout the year. That's what's scaring them the most. The sales tax hurts. There's no doubt about it. But the uncertainty on the aid is what's really got them running scared. So we are going to really have to wait and see what happens with our sales tax revenue sharing from the county level. We did get our first quarter, which was $168,000, and that was as high as it's ever been. That was a very healthy payment. So we do have that money in the bank. We just have to wait and see. So we've got about just under $600,000 remaining on the hook. Now back to the state aid. The aid that we get from the state, our aim is secured as far as I know, because last year the state said the aim is going to come out of county sales tax money. So the aid that we need to worry about is our consolidated highway funding aid, which amounts to $146,000. My back of the napkin math tells me that even if the state reduced our CHIPS funding by 40%, that remaining 60, 70,000 that Jamie talked about would account for that. So to me, it looks like, for the information that we have now, which is uncertain, that Jamie's plan going forward, gets work done on our highways in a reasonable way, and it also is accounting for the possibility of reduction in that aid in the highway budget. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the board to discuss. I've got Mark Heineman trying to call in, so I'm going to give a little technical support here. Would you guys mind discussing what your thoughts are on funding for road work, please?
I would say that to go ahead with it as planned. I doubt oil prices will be any less than they are now, to look at it from that direction as well.
I 100% agree with John. I think we should go ahead. We don't need to get any farther behind.
I also agree with you. Don't get behind.
Okay, well, it sounds like, guys, the general consensus is then we'll move forward based on what I've given you guys. And that's subject to change a little bit one way or another, plus or minus, but that was what the scope of the work was gonna be. Like I said, on the Linwood Road from Route 20 down to Black Street. That gives us a good place to finish off this year, and then maybe things come together for us next year. We can make that a completed project to the Leroy line. So it really, like John said, with oil prices, they're probably never going to be any lower than what they are right now. Now is a good time to move on it, but keeping in mind too, we're going to pull back a little bit on that money on the tail end. So we got some, little bit of a safety net there. So I will plan on proceeding with that then. And as far as anything else I got on my agenda for tonight, really the only two things I have, which Rob already mentioned, was a snow and ice contract, which we need to talk about. But coming up next week, I'd like to give a big thanks to Cindy for her banners. They were a great success, and looks like we're gonna have our veterans banners in hand next week. Myself and a couple of the guys will be busy putting them up next week, try to get ready for Memorial Day weekend. And other than that, looks like that's all I have for you guys tonight. So I'm going to sit back and listen and see what goes on.
I'm going to stop you right there real quick. We have somebody logged in, and I'm wondering if it's Mark. If you're calling on a phone or you have your video turned off, could you just state who you are so I know if it's our board member, Mark Heineman? Okay, well, if it is Mark, I guess he's having technical difficulties, but I have someone who's showing up under the name owner unmuted. So if you want to speak, you're able to. All right, with that, I guess, Jamie, if you don't mind, we'll turn it over to John Rogers to fill in the rest of the highway report.
Yeah, I'm all good. Go ahead, Jen.
All I'd add is when I stopped in to do the vouchers today, I peeked in the shop and I noticed 2 of the 3 doors were done for the shop, and they look good. Seemed awfully quiet in there. So I'm sure that'll make the guys happier throughout the winter. But that is all I had as well.
Okay, if I may chime in on that, thanks for reminding me, John, on that one. I did want to put out to the town board to see what they'd like to do with the old overhead doors, as far as whether we declare them surplus, what your thoughts are on them, where they go from here. As John said, 2 doors are installed. We're waiting on, actually Higley's Welding bent up the new steel door frames for the northeast overhead door, which hopefully, if time permits, within the next week or 2, we should be able to get that door opening reframed, and that 3rd door can be put in. Woodruff is anxiously awaiting our phone call when we're ready on that. But you guys can give me a little input on what you want to do with the old doors, whether they're going to go in a dumpster, what you want to do with them. So give me your thoughts on that, if you would.
I don't think they have hardly any value or any value at all. I would just as soon declare them surplus.
Yeah, I would say surplus. If anybody wants them, they could take them, but I don't think it's anything we could get value out of.
Yeah, we're certainly not going to gain anything by hanging on to them. They're not worth anything.
Okay, with that, Jamie, if you're all finished, we'll move on to the sewer report with Obi and our engineers here, John Hinman and Paul Chatfield. Also have just a little bit of information about our disinfectant system that we have some resolutions on, but we can kind of fold it into the report as well.
I don't have anything.
John or Paul, would you mind giving the board just a brief overview of the lifter pump for the disinfectant system as well as the polisher so that they can get the details about what that would do for us directly from you?
Yeah, so as part of the grant that we applied for last year, was we got that one EPG grant, which is an engineering planning grant. So we've gone through that and we started to analyze the plant and how it performs. I've been speaking with the operator, with a company that operates it as well, Canon Group, and just kind of analyzing how the system works and what future things might be needed in that plant. One of the major components of how the plant operates is at times the water that is as clean as possible, the effluent water, that's the last part of the process, goes out towards the creek, occasionally has a scum and foaming buildup that goes past the discharge pipe. That type of material that tends to get into UV systems, tends to gum up the works, make it so you have a lot of downtime. It's about a 3-4 hour time that you have to somehow bypass that water to clean the troughs out. And it creates a lot of issues to maintain the UV system and sometimes causes it to fail. In order to bypass and get rid of that issue, you have a few options. One is putting a sand filter in, which can be quite costly. The cheaper option is, a $10,000 to $20,000 polisher system. Essentially, it's a giant bag filter. You force the water through, and that polishes up the water enough so that the UV system can clean the water to meet the new regulation that the plant has to operate under these new DEC guidelines. The pump system, that's essentially what we think is needed because the discharge point of the plant is below your 100-year floodplain. So the possibility of the plant itself flooding is not going to happen, but because of how low the plant is at the discharge point, we have to install the UV system at that elevation if we weren't going to pump the water back up to the UV system. The regulations with the state basically states that we have to stay 3 feet above the floodplain, the 100-year floodplain, with all of our equipment, whether that's UV or chlorine disinfectant. The way we can get it by that is to install a pump station to lift that water back up into the UV trough. So essentially, by putting in the pump, putting in the filter bag system or polisher, we're really able to clean up the water enough to make the UV system quite effective and as cost effective as possible. You'd still potentially need a pump station if we did chlorine, and chlorine is far more expensive, not just in the upfront cost, but in the tail end of the project, the upkeep of it and the cost of chlorine and potential hazards to the employees that work with it. Put those costs and maintenance operation stuff pretty high up. So does that answer what you were asking about, Rob?
Yes, absolutely. I appreciate it. Thank you. Do any of the board members have any questions about that system and the merits of it? It seemed like a pretty good idea to me. It seemed like it killed several birds with one stone. And since we're going to get a grant for this, it seems like we should do the best we can, provided that the grant's paying for it.
Well, we definitely need the grant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any idea how long that'll take us into the future? Hard with DEC, I know.
The timeline for finding out if we're going to get the grant or not, or the lifespan of the disinfectant system?
Lifespan of the system, the new system.
The lifespan will range. We found these same type of systems run you 20 to 30 years. We found some that go upwards of 40 years. They will last you. It's just, there's no reason to believe that the DEC is going to up your speedies permit again. We have made phone calls to them stating and trying to find out if they're going to change the permit again. There's no way to know the future. There's no way for us to answer that, but we've tried to do everything we can to make sure we design this system to surpass or to meet the needs of what this new speedies permit is going to be. And we have asked the question of the DEC, simply because we told them we don't want to go through this process of constructing something at this plant again after we just constructed it in the year 2000, and when it was constructed in 2005, that simply the hamlet can't handle upgrade after upgrade. And so far they've told us, nope, this is all that's on the line. This is all that they're planning on putting on, mandating to the town. But again, we don't know the future.
5 to 7 years ago, the disinfection wasn't even on their radar screen, I don't think. I mean, this is relatively new from the standpoint of requiring the disinfection across the state. And the UV system sure seems to be, from what we can tell, the best method for dealing with the situation. Because if you're chlorinated, then you'd have to dechlorinate. So you put chlorine in, take chlorine out. So and John has worked on several of these ultraviolet disinfection projects. So there's two grant applications that you can consider, and I know that you have the proposal in front of you for the grant writing.
You want me to discuss that right now, Rob? I'm sorry.
Yeah, let's go ahead, because I emailed that out to everybody yesterday afternoon. Did everybody get that proposal that I sent out?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So let me back up in the process. So last year, after the town had received this mandate letter from the DEC requiring disinfection, I talked to Rob about basically what the next steps are and how we can get this done. It's not a project that we can just say this goes away. The DEC is mandating it; it has to happen. So I said, this is the process of how we're able to get the most potential money for the township to help assist and alleviate some of these costs. The first step was we applied for the EPG grant. That's a multiple step process. We got that grant, the town got that grant, and allowed us to write an engineering report. Now we're going to take that report and we're going to apply for 2 more grants. It's required in order to submit these next grants. So the proposal that you have in front of you is for the 2 separate grants. You have the Consolidated Fund application for a water quality improvement program, the WQIP. The second one is the New York State Water Infrastructure Improvement Act. That's your WIA. Those are the only 2 possible grants that are most prominent to get any type of fund towards this project. In the past, it's been almost guaranteed that you get at least the WQIP as long as you got the EPG previously. The WIA is a more difficult grant to obtain, but it's more probable when you've had an income survey done in the area and you can show poverty rate. And when I talked to Rob earlier this year, I said, you know what, we can either wait till next year to apply or go for it this year. And I needed to decide whether or not you wanted to go for both grants or just one of the 2 grants. And after Rob and I had discussed, it made most sense to go for both this year, because next year we have no clue where the budget's going to be, but some of this money's already been allocated to this year. On top of that point, the town already had an income survey done for this area last year, and the survey is only good for 2 years. So we're able to use the income survey that the town already had in hand, and we can use it towards applying for the WIA grant. So we don't know what the future holds. We don't know if none of these grants are guaranteed, but our best possible chance for getting these grants, I kind of believe, is right now. And that's why we put together this package of, if you want to do 1 grant, there's a cost. If you want to do 2 grants, there's a cost. And if you want to do both of them, because some of the work overlaps, we'll discount that rate and apply for them. Just to give you an idea of what these grants do and how they're going to assist the hamlet to pay for the disinfection process. The WQIP pays 75% of your construction costs. The WIA, on its own pays about 25% of all costs. So that's engineering, that is your administration, your attorney fees, and the construction. If you get both grants, it doesn't mean you get the 25% and the 75%. If you get the WQIP, which is your 75% grant, that'll give the township that 75% of construction costs, and the remainder of that you'd get with a WIA. So the WIA won't contribute 25% total. It'll give you probably around another 10% of your costs. But either way, what it does is I ran the numbers from the report that I'm putting together. And again, these are preliminary numbers. I still need to review these heavily and make sure my numbers are as sound as I can be, but I'm just giving you kind of an idea of what we're looking at. With no grant at all, the cost of the hamlet per household would be about $14 a month. Additional costs on top of what people currently pay. If you got just the WQIP grant, you could drop that to around $7 a month. And if you added on top of that, somehow if we got the WIA on top of the WQIP, you could drop that to around $550. So you can see every grant that we get, we can significantly lower that cost to the hamlet. And I understand that, you know, there is a cost associated with applying for the grant, but it does lower those rates significantly if we can get those things. And I think your best chances right now.
So I guess I would invite the board to discuss this. John and I have already talked about it, and I agree with everything that John just said. Since we have the income survey already on the books and we paid for it, to me, it's a no-brainer that we should use that data now to try to get more grant money. If we waited on it, you know, it would cost us several $1,000s to get another income survey done.
And Rob, one other thing I didn't mention is there's a chance with the WIA as well, because of where the income survey came in at poverty rate. The DEC in the past has offered 0% interest rates on the whole program, and that'll significantly lower those costs. That $550 mark will be much lower than that if we can get that rate.
Yeah, I say we should go with it. Yeah, there's no sense in waiting. We're just going to lose money if we do wait till later.
Just have a question, Rob. Did we do enough of an income survey for the whole township of the hamlet? Or was that just within the water district that we did that income survey?
So what we did, we kind of piggybacked off from the water survey, and we had Jake Grosso come in and use the data that he got off from the water income survey and then get the rest of the sewer district, so that we had a separate one for the sewer district when we started doing the grant writing. So this is specifically for the sewer district, but we did save a lot of money on it because we'd already overlapped a lot of that area with the water.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should go with it. Putting it off is not going to be profitable.
Okay, just for structural reasons, I'm going to wait to make a motion on that until we get into the resolution aspect of the meeting. But after Jim is done giving his report, I will make a motion to that effect. So Jim, could you give us a report on planning?
Sure. I guess the main thing going on is the Jesse Coots wanting to put in a mud bog thing over on between Perry Road and Route 19. A lot of action going on with that in terms of you know, the neighbors, and a lot of opposition to it. He's put forth some, you know, drawn out and written plans, but there's also wetlands over there that's going to involve the DEC. So in talking with Matt today, basically everybody's going to require a, you know, an official site plan instead of something drawn on a piece of paper and colored in, you know. But that was something that we were gonna have a public hearing next Wednesday. Due to the constraints of what's going on right now, we can't hold a public hearing for it. So that's gonna have to wait until, I believe, after June 1st. So that's on hold. Other than that, Matt said they're gonna be able to start issuing permits starting on Friday. He has quite a few that he's been sitting on because they weren't supposed to be issuing permits during this period unless it was something very essential. He says as of Friday, there will be a bunch of those going out. And he also mentioned the appeals board. He wants to figure out what we're going to do with that because we kind of have to depend on the courts to be getting back opened up before we can do anything with that. So there's still training involved and everything, but depending on when a courtroom opens up before you can really act on anything. And the only other thing is there was a call the other night that they got called into up on Star Road for an issue with a trailer. It's, I guess, right near Mark's house. He said by the time they got there, it was too late, but he says there seems to be some pretty good issues with the house. They weren't able to go in. It was too late. Their time to get there was already over with because the problem had been solved and that was taken care of. So it's just something that he's going to have to keep an eye on. Other than that,
Broke up a little bit, Jim. Could you repeat the last bit? I think he's stuck in the Pavilion internet for a couple of minutes. We'll wait 1 minute to see if he comes back in. I know when I'm doing it from home, I get kicked off Zoom about 20 times during the course of a meeting, so. Okay, well, it looks like Jim is stuck for a minute. Yeah. Okay, I think Jim was about done with his report. Hopefully he will hop back onto this meeting in a moment. As of now, we still have a quorum with 3 voting members. And that first resolution that I said I'm going to offer, which is not on our resolution sheet. So I'll dictate it, but it's going to be pretty simple. That I make a motion to approve both the WWIA and WQIP grant writing through MRB Group via their proposal with compensation not to exceed $8,500. Is there a second for that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, I just got a text from Jim. His Wi-Fi went out. He's going to log back in a second. So let's just wait a moment here. I'm going to write back to him.
Rob, can you give me that resolution again?
Sure thing. It is an approval of MRB's
WWIA,
yeah, WWIA, WQIP.
WIIA.
WI.
Okay, I'm sorry. My apology.
Oh, it's okay.
Okay.
And then it's work not to exceed $8,500.
It was WQ what?
WQIP.
Grant writing not to exceed 8,500
Correct. And that's for the sewer
for sewer.
disinfectant system. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And it was not my house on Star Road that they came to.
Sure. I heard somebody was painting their wall blue without a building permit, Cindy, so it was.
Okay, could be me then.
So I guess Jim is having some technical difficulties. We're gonna go ahead and move on, and then hopefully he can pop in as soon as his Wi-Fi comes back in. So according to our agenda and our resolution sheet, the next resolution also pertains to MRB sewer cost resolution. It is that the town supervisor is authorized to execute the grant agreement with the Environmental Facilities Corporation and any and other contracts, documents, instruments necessary to bring the project and fulfill the town's obligation under the grant agreement. It further states that the town is going to have to appropriate a 20% match for any of these grants, up to $30,000. The source of the match is going to come from the sewer fund. I want to make that correction because in the copy I sent out to you guys, it said general fund, but that will come from the sewer fund. And the maximum local match shall not exceed $6,000 based on an estimated maximum total project cost of $30,000. The town supervisor may increase this local match through the use of in-kind services without further approval from the town board. It just allows me to execute the grant agreement. Is there any discussion about this motion? Is there a second for the motion?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That resolution passes. And the next one, again, is for the seeker for the project at the sewer. It says we were awarded an engineering planning grant under the consolidated funding. And the New York State Department of Conservation. It's administered through the Clean Water Revolving Fund. The town board accepts the EPG program grant on behalf of the town for a wastewater treatment plant disinfectant improvement study. The code requires that we follow the Seeker Act. Therefore, be it resolved that the town of Pavilion determines that the proposed project is a type 2 action in accordance with the number 6 from New York CRR, which constitutes information collection, including basic data collection, research, water quality, pollution studies, traffic counts, engineering studies, surveys, subsurface investigations, and soil studies. Do not commit the agency to undertake, fund, or approve any type 1 or unlisted action. Conduct concurrent environmental engineering, economic feasibility, and other studies with preliminary planning and budgetary processes necessary to the formulation of a proposal for action, provided that the activities do not commit the agency to commence, engage in, or approve such action. Therefore, it is therefore not subject to further review under the number 6 NYCRR Part 617. It is a type 2 action, which just means that we don't have any further complications. Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, that resolution passes with 3 votes. The next one is reauthorization to take the water tank project to bid. Before we start this, I want to open it back up to John. John Hinman, my apologies. If you could present to the board what you told me about speaking with Caldwell and some of the contractors as far as what their schedules are looking like, what their attitudes are going forward.
Gladly. Apologize. Yeah, so once we had to rebid this project, I went through and we just analyzed every single component that we thought we could possibly cut costs on. alter to make more clear in the bidding documents. And one of those things Rob had asked us to do was go and speak with the actual tank manufacturers. There was originally 6 manufacturers we had looked at to try to bid on this project. And once we contacted every possible person after the bid, what we found out is a lot of those players now have pulled out of New York State with their bidding, or they no longer offer that type of tank from, you know, when we originally started the project till when we bid the project. So we were left with 2 possible bidders. And so I went back to those 2 that actually bid the project and asked them specifically, why was the bid so high compared to where we thought it would be, and where the estimate was. They provided me a list of items. I went through those and tried to find anything that we could possibly address to lower those costs. Further, I sent the same type of documentation out to general contractors and electrical contractors, trying to get a better idea from them where we could lower costs and get more bidders to come together. So we did all that legwork. We put the plans back together with the applicable changes. I've spoken with Rural Development. I've spoken with Monroe County Water Authority, the Health Department, the County Highway, every possible person we can, and everyone kind of has said, yep, let's go back to bid. We're ready to go. Beyond that, I spoke specifically with Caldwell and Phoenix in the last week. They both kind of indicated the same thing. The bidding environment for the tanks is slightly slow right now, so it's a good time for them to bid. Fuel prices are low, which is in our favor. Steel prices are at an all-time low for what their tanks need. So from their standpoint, it's a fairly good bidding environment for us. They did ask a few components that would need to be in there to give the best possible price. That would be to open up the bids this year as soon as we can, but to allow them to finish the tank 2021 in the fall. They need to spend the remainder of this year on the tank design of the specific components, internal calculations and things of that sort. And then they'd probably get the foundation in late this year, and then they complete the full tank into next year. So as it stands right now, yes, it seems like right now is a fairly good bidding environment. We've seen the same thing coming into play on water main projects. At the beginning of, all of 2019, we had a lot of water projects come in pretty high. And recently we've seen a lot of projects come in at budget or below budget. So from compared to when we did bid it last year till now, everything's indicating that it's a good time to go back to bid.
Thank you very much, John. I like the sound of that. After, Paul, what have we been at this for? 5 years now, 15, 35 years we've been trying to get this thing done?
Yeah, I didn't have white hair then.
I couldn't grow a beard when we started.
All right.
Okay, so the next resolution that we have is an authorization that allows the town supervisor to authorize MRB to take the project to bid once all of the various organizations have signed on to it, and all town board members have been notified. It's not something I'm looking to do in the dead of night. It's just this way we don't have to call a special meeting when we're ready to actually authorize the bid. I don't know if we're actually going to get it out before our next meeting, but this way the option's open for us. Does anybody have any questions or comments or concerns about that resolution? Okay, would anybody like to make the resolution? Make the motion?
So move.
Move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that resolution passes.
So John and I did talk about potential bid dates.
Okay,
And John, I think we had talked about opening bids the 25th of June. Is that right?
Yes, we'd start the bid process on June 18th, or sorry, May 25th is what we talked about. Pre-bid on June 18th and open on the 25th.
okay, so bids go out on the 25th, pre-bid on the 18th, open on the 25th. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. The one group that I have not been in great contact with during this whole coronavirus thing is our bond counsel. They've been out of the office. I do have all of the required documentation and everything here, but just because people haven't been in the office and stuff, I haven't sent it down to them. So I do need to get a confirmation from bond counsel that we're all set, but we should be fine. I'm, quite certain that we're good. The estoppel period and the permissive referendum have passed. And so we should be set and ready to go, but I'm gonna, over the next week, let me get my P's and Q's together just to confirm that we'd be able to take it to bid on the 25th.
Okay. So just for your information on the pre-bid meeting, we're going to do a teleconference for that.
Okay.
And we'll put that right in the notice to bidders. And for the bid opening, we will also do the bids will be received by the town clerk on that particular day and time. And we will read them aloud, and people can call in on a teleconference, so they don't have to come. We've done this on another project just recently, and it worked out well.
Very good. Okay. Thank you very much, Paul. That's fantastic. That's a lot of stuff on tonight.
Yeah.
and possibly some good news for us. So I'm not going to count the chickens before they hatch, but boy, I hope we get a little bit of good news on this one. Okay, that said, we will move along to some more somber resolutions that we have here. It's at this time that I want to give my recommendation to the town board that we need to unfortunately cancel the summer youth recreation program for 2020, as well as the Pavilion Day concert in the park. Looking at the reopening plans that we have for both of these programs, they're not going to even be legally feasible until we get to phase 4, which at this point isn't even going to come into play until middle to late August. So that timeline doesn't work. That said, even when we get to phase 4, all signs from the governor are that we are still going to need to practice social distancing, still need to be wearing masks, so on and so forth. And between that and the fact that the youth rec program can't start on a dime, they need several weeks to hire and train. I don't see any conceivable way that we're going to be able to go forward with the program or the Pavilion Day concert. So is there any question or discussion before we go through the resolutions? Okay, I guess I'll put my head on the chopping block. I will make the motion to cancel Youth Rec Summer Program 2020. I'll read the resolution because it's short. Whereas the COVID pandemic has required statewide collective action of social distancing and other safety measures for the foreseeable future, and whereas the New York State reopening plan calls for education and recreational activities to resume during phase 4, the most distant phase, and whereas the summer youth recreation program requires at least 2 months to prepare for hiring, training, and requisition, now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Pavilion, with great sadness, must cancel the summer youth recreation program in the interest of the safety of our children and the requirements of the state reopening plan. Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That resolution passes. The next resolution, for the same reason, cancels the 2020 Pavilion Day concert in the park. I'll make that resolution. Is there any second?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the last resolution that we have here tonight is a resolution that authorizes the deputy highway superintendent and town supervisor to enter into a contract with Genesee County for snow and ice removal. Whereas the town of Pavilion in years past has held an agreement with Genesee County to remove snow and ice from the county roads for a fee. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board authorizes the deputy highway superintendent and town supervisor to enter into a contract to continue this paid service where we're paid, obviously. Is there a second?
Second.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that passes. Just for your information, we're looking to enter into probably a 1 or a 2 year agreement instead of a longer agreement, just because there's so much up in the air on that. But the agreement needs to go into place by the end of the month. And right now, I don't think is a time to be haggling over contract information. In a year or two, when we go back around, we'll have a bigger discussion about that one. The last thing on our list is the paver purchase that we had spoke about before. I want to bring this up because obviously, we're trying to tighten our belts in every way that we can and not make any discretionary purchases. That said, it's my opinion that this paver is probably one of the best money saving opportunities that we've had in this town since I've joined the town board. I want to reiterate that right now, according to our equipment schedule, we are slotted to spend $85,000 on a paving machine 2 years from now. This paver, which has become available, it's gently used, it was owned by a neighboring town, it's exactly what we need, and it's going to be shared by 2 other towns, is only going to cost us slightly under $7,000. So while I certainly wouldn't be looking to make any discretionary purchases or even any big equipment purchases that weren't absolutely necessary, this opportunity is not the sort of thing that's going to come along very often. And if we do wait and have to follow our schedule, we're looking to be on the hook for, over 10 times the amount that we're going to pay for this paver if we get it now. Covington and Middlebury have either already approved or are approving tonight the purchase of this for, I believe, $6,666.67. And I got it. It's a little ominous to have that many sixes in a row, Jamie, but it's okay. I won't hold it against you. So I personally am in favor of this as a cost-saving measure for this town, but I want to ask the board for their comments on it. And if it looks like it, I'd like to go ahead and approve the purchase.
Looks good to me.
Agree to go for.
John Rogers, you broke up a little bit. Could you repeat that?
I just said I agree to go forward with the purchase.
Me also. That's a bargain.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the paver purchase for the price?
So moved.
So move. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, none opposed. Before we go on to our procedural business, would any of the board members like to bring anything up in the meeting? Would anyone in attendance like to address the board with any issue tonight?
Rob, do we need a resolution to declare those doors surplus?
Yes, we should. Thank you very much for that. I'll make a motion to declare the used overhead doors that we're just taking down surplus. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And I will email you all. I have the proofs of the banners that are going up. I think they look pretty nice. I'll email you what he has sent me. There are a couple things that we had to change on them, a couple name, spelling and stuff was wrong, but I'll email those out to you because they look nice so you can see them before they get up on the poles.
Before you know it, it's going to be summer. We're going to have our banners up and everybody's going to have a smile on their face. So it's right around the corner, I promise. Okay, if there's no further business before the board, I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes from April 8th, 2020, public hearing and regular meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Is there a motion to approve the warrant, the operating statement, the bank reconciliation, and the clerk report?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, is there a motion to close this meeting at 7:54 PM?
Move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, folks, thank you so much for coming out tonight. Thank you for bearing with us with all the technical hiccups and so on and so forth. And I hope everybody stays very healthy and finds happiness where you can. And hopefully we can all enjoy the sunshine and a little bit of warmth on our back porches, all at our houses.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great
Thank you,
night.
everybody. Good night.
Take
Good
care,
night,
everybody.
everybody.